still proud he stole that Guinness World Record for the most downloaded podcast from George Santos. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. No choice. They're going to mandate. Get it on. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for telling a friend. We love that about you, right, Eleanor Kerrigan?
Yes, it's amazing.
And Max Spada.
Hello.
All right, so lots to get into today. Stephen A. coming in the second half. Eleanor, first half, lots of stuff to discuss. We just got back from Dallas, and we got clips to play and stuff to get into. Mm-hmm. All right, first, controversy about decaf coffee.
Oh.
I had a nice suite in Dallas, and they provided 3 coffee packets for the coffee machine that they provided in the room, and I used one of them up on Saturday, but the one I really needed was Sunday because I got back to my room after the festivities and eating and everything else. I went to bed about 1. I was due to meet Mike August in the lobby at 6:15 because that's how we roll. Mm-hmm. We were going to return the rental car, which required a shuttle from the rental car place. And then also within the airport, get on the C-tram and take it all the way across the airport.
I don't like that airport.
I don't. It's a big airport.
It's
too
big. It's too big. Some say too big.
Mm-hmm.
So, couple things. First, I got up. I went to bed at 1. I got up on my own at 5:30 because I just had too much anxiety about getting up. I probably set my alarm for like 5:45, but I got up at 5:30. They've eliminated the clock inside of hotel rooms. So I sleep, it's pitch black, and I keep looking around to figure out, when you go to bed at 1 and you got to get up at 5:45, when you wake up at 3:45 to see where you're at, you don't know where you're at. You don't know if you have 30 minutes left or 3 hours left. Like, that's at least to my brain. But there are no more clocks inside hotel rooms except for the part where I complained to Mike August about this, and he says, my room has a clock.
Okay.
Which now we're in some catch-as-catch-can world where half the rooms have clocks and the other half do not.
So you can request like a clock room? Is that like an extra charge?
I then looked around and realized I do have a clock. It doesn't work. I kept hitting power. I was trying to figure out. There's no clean way to unplug and plug anything. Everything's kind of strapped down and you're pulling on a cord. Right. And do I have to undo the lamp to plug the clock in? I don't know what's going on with the clock. I would like to live in a world where hotel rooms just had a clock on the wall, like NASA or something, where I could just count it down. Or like one of those things, see up in New York City, it's like, this is our federal deficit. It's just a billboard.
You need like a handicap room with like a big giant
Here's how
clock.
Many people die of secondhand smoke every year. I could just look up at any point and go, here's what time it is.
There you go.
I couldn't do that. So anyway, I woke up at 5:30 and I was like, all right, now I'm going to make myself a coffee. 2 packets left.
Ooh.
There were 3. I'd used up 1. The 2 that were left were decaf. So now we're at a 66% to 33% margin of decaf versus regular. First things first. The actual ratio of people who want a decaf coffee is the exact same ratio of people that want a veggie sub from Quiznos when you're shooting something and you send some PA. Go get some subs from We got 50 people here. Just go get a couple of boxes, and they get the 1 roast beef, and then they get the turkey, and then the third box is the veggie sub.
Right.
Except for nobody wants the veggie sub.
The human food, and then
Look, whenever you go to one of those places where they have the carafe with the push pump thing at the top, the decaf one is always full, and the regular one isn't full because people who want coffee want caffeinated coffee. So now it's not even split. The split, look, it'd be shit if they had 1 decaf and 1 regular. That would still be a fucked up ratio. This is 2 decaf. Now it's 5:30 in the morning. and I'm just looking at the big decaf thing written on top of the thing. Now, here's my question. Are they trying to unload the decaf things that they have left over?
Yeah.
Because there's no possible way their policy would just be 2 decaf, 1 regular for people who want. If you want to make a cup of coffee in your room, you're trying to get right.
I hear
you drank too much on the plane, you took a nap when you got in, and now it's showtime, or you're going out to dinner, or like whatever. It's like if you're drinking that cup of coffee in your room, or it's 5:15 in the morning and you got to make a flight, like you're looking to get something out of that other than just sitting around and enjoying the general flavor of coffee minus the caffeine.
Right. But if you think that the people that are stocking it think about you, or anybody,
they
for that
don't.
matter.
I think
they just like, I have to fill this slot. So
I think they're trying to move. I think they have a surplus.
It's like we have too much of this.
They're lousy with decaf. They need to get rid of it.
I don't know. All right, there are 10 people in this building right now. Does anyone drink decaf?
I'll answer for everybody and say no.
No.
But also, decaf should be like a special request, right? It should just be,
I don't even drink
this guy's
coffee.
vegan. This person can't have eggs. That's the only time you should have decaf.
Special request.
It should never just be...
call down to the front desk.
Yeah.
Tell them you're a special needs coffee drinker and you want some fucking decaf for your pussy ass.
Right. I don't drink coffee, but as a server, I was a waitress for a long time, and I'd have the decaf, but it always just sat there.
Full.
The whole day.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever changed
This
it
is
once.
my global problem for this society. Like, somebody adjust this ratio.
It's ridiculous.
And then there's always some asswipe that's like, oh, my sister-in-law likes the... Yeah, that's her. She lives in Michigan. There's one of her. Then there's everybody else. And I would also argue that nobody needs decaf. Decaf is... It's like nobody needs peppermint tea. It's like you may want peppermint tea, but you don't need... When you go to bed at 1 a.m. and you get up at 5:25... You need regular coffee. Yeah. No one needs decaf. They may enjoy it. That's a luxury. But this is a necessity. So, anyway.
That could be very infuriating, too, it's early.
Roughly 10% of Americans drink decaf.
Wow.
All right. But I got the 66% on the decaf ratio at the room. So... Are they trying to just move these packets that they bought too many of 12 years ago?
I think so.
Dawson?
I think the root problem, remember in the Sopranos when they were busting out the sporting goods store? Yeah. And he said, he'll give us a price if we order some blue coolers too. Mm-hmm. And the guy says, no, they all got to be red. We're not paying for them anyway. Mm-hmm. He says, they all got to be red. Somewhere down this supply chain is a guy pushing the decaf and giving you a price on regular coffee if you get the decaf too, because they got to move it.
Something is afoot. Like there's something nefarious going on.
But why are they doing it?
That's why I think the mob is involved. Definitely.
100%.
Isn't decaf, wouldn't that be harder to make? Because isn't coffee naturally caffeinated? So is there a process? Is it costing them more money to make a decaf?
I don't know, but they have made enough of it, and they now need to unload it 1 or 2 extra packets at a time, times 2,000 Sheraton hotels all around the USA and in Europe and parts of Asia as well. All right, so now I get no decaf, but I get all decaf. But I go down and I meet Mike, who, by the way, is not a sympathetic ear because he doesn't drink coffee no matter when. So once I launch my diatribe onto Mike, who's the first human I see, it's all on deaf ears. He doesn't care about caffeine or coffee. What he does care about is the merch bag that we were supposed to take with us to check at the airport.
Yeah.
No merch. The merch bag is where the car drop-off is, where the valet is, but it's locked up and we can't get to it. Then Mike's furiously dancing around at 6:15 in the morning. We have an 8 a.m. flight. Okay. He's dancing all over the place. Can't find it. Eventually just cuts bait. He says, I'll take the ticket. I'll bring it in. I'll put it behind the front desk. I'll tell them Chris will get it tomorrow, and we got to split for the airport. We have to go drop the rental car off, then wait for the bus to take us to the American airline. And then once we get to the American airline, we have to check in. And then once we check in, there's a long shuttle train that has 5 other stops before we get to our gate, which is super far away. Then anxiety kicking in. Now, remember that the rental car drop-off place is 3 miles from the airport. So we're using Google Maps or Waze or whatever to try to fish us. It's dark outside. Yeah. I'm running off of fumes, and Mike's driving like an insane person because that's how Mike drives, especially in the wee hours. We're trying to find the drop-off for the thing. The thing is telling us to turn left on Luggage Avenue. You know, the sign is saying go to the right, but the verbal thing's like turn left on, you know, we turn left. We go left. We find nothing. We circle all the way around. Mike's driving angry and dangerous now. She's coming around again. Now we come to the intersection. Turn left. Mike is yelling at the phone, shut up, bitch, because we're seeing arrows going airport rental drop off to the right. The bitch telling us to the left. I'm yelling at Mike, shut your phone. Shut it down. I don't want to argue with this bitch who keeps telling us to go somewhere else.
Yeah, you want him to Luke Skywalker it. Just use his instincts.
Yeah.
Mike cannot figure out how to get his phone to shut up, so she's just telling us to turn around the whole time. We're going. We get in there. We drop it off. Flight's at 8. We get out of the car about 6:50. Hustle it over to the buses. Always a little unclear under the bus. Is one bus going to drop everyone off at all the different gates, or is there one separate dedicated bus per gate? We figure out that the bus keeps picking up other people and leaving, and we're at the American gate. And now it's like 7:10. We have not checked in. We're standing there, and at some point our bus guy pulls up, drops us off. We get to the American gate. It's 7:15, 8 a.m. flight, never late, first flight out. Nice line at the American check-in, but we're not checking bags anymore because we couldn't get the bag out of the valet.
Right.
So Mike goes right to the kiosk.
Perfect.
Kiosk spits out a boarding pass that says invalid kiosk, you know, whatever. I go stand in line while Mike runs to another bank of kiosks, tries it again. Snake eyes, nothing coming out of the kiosk.
Oh, that's tough.
Go in there, check in as fast as we can. Tell us to get in security line. Now it's like flight's leaving in 35 minutes.
Please tell me you have clear or first class. I'm having anxiety for this story.
They didn't have clear, but they had like priority plus or something. I get in that line. I'm going through. Mike's right behind me, but we have to go through, walk a long ways, go up an escalator, get onto a tram, and it's a long tram ride, and all the stops are before the A gates where we're at.
And hopefully they're both working, because sometimes there's one down.
Mike, it's working. I get through. I get on the tram with pretty much when they're boarding, like a half hour before the flight. Mike's behind me somewhere. I get on, I get down, I'm hustling. I wish I had some caffeine in my veins. No caffeine to be found. I hear them paging me as I'm hustling toward the thing. You get there, there's always this weird conversation. Hey, we paged you. Yeah, I heard that, but here we go. And they're like, you're also supposed to be traveling with Mike August as well. Where's Mike? I'm like, he's right behind me. He's right behind me. He's coming any second now because I don't want him to shut the door.
Yeah, Mike told me the story, and he said that you told him you're going to hold the plane for as long as you can. How would you do that?
You have to fake a heart attack.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I did it. First I stood by the gate in front of the two gate agent ladies. Now it's about 20 minutes to 8.
Okay.
Flight's leaving at 8. But again, they're Nazis about shutting that door.
They close at 15 minutes
on
before.
the first flight of the day because they don't get out clean. Everything gets bumped back. You know, so I do. So I call Mike. It goes to voice message. I'm like, where the fuck is Mike? I call Mike. I call him. Now, the two gate agencies, I'm like, I'm going to just call this guy and tell him. Now I have a fake conversation with Mike's phone that's ringing. Hey, man, where are you? Oh, good. Oh, so just getting off the tram. Okay, because I'm by the gate. Yeah, no, the ladies are great. Yeah, I told them to be here. Yeah, so you're coming on. It's like, right, I'm just hearing me on the phone. I'm like, all right, okay, good. Then that's good. Then I'll see you in a 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Then we're just right here right now. Okay, he's here. He's just getting off the tram. And I hang up the phone. Then I'm like standing there, and they're like, well, you should get on now. And I'm like, yeah, he's coming. He's just getting off the tram. Then I go walk down the jetway and I call Mike, and he does pick up this time, and he's like, I'm not going to make it. And I'm like, where are you? And he said, I'm on the tram, but I just got on the tram, and they have like 3 stops before we even get to your thing. So then I try this move. I don't know if this is an actual time. I don't know if I can keep the door open longer, but I walk onto the plane. I drop my luggage like right in front of where the galley is, where the food is. And I go, I got to use the bathroom right here. So just a second, and she's like, oh, okay. And I just dump my bags there. Meaning like I'm in the bathroom. Maybe they'll wait till I come out of the bathroom. Yeah. I'm grasping at straws at this point. At some point, I just make my way to my seat. I don't know if Mike made the cut or not. He's been burned a few times. This one was a combination of couldn't get the bag from the valet. That scrubbed off a couple minutes.
Right.
Got weird direction from Google Maps telling us to turn the other direction in the thing. Had to wait a long time for the shuttle, and then had to take a train to the gate, all kind of conspiring to add about 15 or 20 minutes to the ordeal. Mike finally made it on. Mike got pulled out of security. Mike travels with a refillable jumbo size of Robitussin cough medicine.
No.
And he frequently gets pulled out of line because he has 14 ounces of Robitussin in a thing in his backpack. And then I say to Mike, how much of this do you consume on a weekend? Like when you do it? And the answer is 2 tablespoons. So my thing is, can you put it into a smaller container?
Travel size.
100%.
Or just buy the small thing of Robitussin.
They're everywhere. It's not like he's going somewhere where they don't have...
Can't do it.
Oh, at the beginning of the story, I liked him, and now I hate him.
Cannot do it. He won't do it. He gets pulled out all the time because they're fanatics about traveling with water or liquids or whatever. So he gets pulled out because he has the big tub of family-sized tub of Robitussin.
Costco size.
I don't even know why. I know it's cheaper. And I know he buys it that way. But then buy the little one and just transfer. Yeah. So he got pulled out, and that almost
he made
cost
the flight?
him. He made.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
He made the flight.
He gets pulled over from TSA all the time to where whenever they grab his bag, he looks at him and goes, it's probably the Robitussin.
Right.
Maybe he likes getting felt up by the TSA. That's crazy because I hate it. I hate being I hate even talking to them. So I wouldn't have anything in there. I don't even bring hairspray.
My biggest problem with this is the rental cars. It's different at every airport.
Yeah.
You don't know how far away it is from the airport, how long it can get you back. There should be a service kind of like how they let you bring it back if you want to fill the tank yourself or if you want us to do it.
Just dump it.
A drop off at the airport. Just drop it off. It'll charge you an extra $10 to take it back, but at least you're at the curb.
Yeah, and that $10 would be $80, but at least you'd have an
Peace
option of. In our particular case, we probably would have drove through and eaten the $80. Yeah. The other thing that took place over the weekend that I'm curious about. We were showing my KROQ doc that we're doing here. It's a documentary on the radio station KROQ. Everybody from Jimmy Kimmel to Carson Daly, Dr. Drew, the many luminaries got their start on KROQ. It's a legendary station. It has many interesting stories. And I was going to... kind
of like moderate screening, right?
Yeah, we put together a panel. I don't have my spot, by the way. Chris?
We're not doing one.
Oh, okay. Well, why is it on the rundown here?
It's a pre-record just for the...
it says it on there. All right. Yeah, that's not going to work with me. It's got to, if it's in the slot, I'm going to look for it.
Copy.
The dock is in decent shape, but not really ready to go. So I instructed my crew.
Okay.
Put together some half-hour, 45-minute version of the doc, and then I will run it, and I will comment on it.
Okay.
Because I was there for a lot of the stuff that went on the doc. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back, and I'll tell you the rest of that story right after this. Let me tell you about Good Ranchers. I know you're having trouble keeping up with your old New Year's resolution, but here's a new one. It's Good Ranchers. Do some serious good in your life. Change how you buy meat. Good Ranchers, 100% American meat company that delivers the best cuts of beef, chicken, and seafood right to your door, all sourced from local U.S. farms right now. Get over 2 pounds of chicken free in every box for a year when you subscribe. That's a year's worth of America's best chicken free. $149 value when you subscribe at goodranchers.com. Plus a bonus, $20 off with my code Adam at checkout. So get all that great protein that Good Ranchers provides and get the chicken for a year and get $20 off when you use the code Adam at checkout. Right, Dawson?
Start your year right. Change the way you buy meat by switching to Good Ranchers. Make sure to subscribe today and use code Adam to claim your free chicken for a year and $20 off your first box. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. In celebration of Jim Carolla's upcoming 92nd birthday, here's a list of 92 things Jim Carolla has never done. Number 7. Changed a flat tire. Just one of 92 things Jim Carolla has never done. Let's get back to the Adam Carolla Show.
He did have a girlfriend after he and my mom separated. Buy him for his birthday a set of tires for his VW Bug.
Okay.
Back in the day, which at the time made me think, oh, she's pragmatic and that's cool. And we got some new tires. But as I think about it now, when you're 42 and somebody has to buy you a set of tires for your car that you met 4 weeks ago or 3 months ago, or somebody new in your life looks at your tires and goes,
you need new
new tires, or says to you, you got to get some new tires. And you're like, slow your roll, lady. It's a little rich. I'm only in my early 40s.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of tire money to throw around.
Whoa.
By the way, if you need a set of tires for your Corvette, that could set you back. That's a bigger, wider, higher performance. VW Bug is the thinnest, skinniest, least expensive. At the time, those tires were $14 a corner.
I believe that, yeah.
Somebody needed to intervene.
Also, I don't think I would ever do that to a man. You need tires. I feel like I'd get punched in the face. You don't tell me I need tires. That's a man thing. You know what I mean?
I couldn't handle it.
So
but
if
you got to ride, but if you have to ride in the car with the guy with the bald tires,
yeah, of course. But I still would be like, oh, it feels weird. I'd hint around and let it be their idea. I'm kind of old, I guess.
So you'd be like, when you're wearing flip-flops and you've been wearing them too long and you can almost feel the ground through your feet.
I have a nail in my foot.
Yeah. So she bought him a set of tires. I remember that.
God bless her.
Yeah.
So we got the KROQ doc.
Right.
And I say to my guys who are in the next room editing from where we're sitting, whack together some version of this that I can show. We're not going to have a finished product. We're not going to have it mixed, sound corrected, color corrected, all that. We're not going to be able to do that. We'll have some place saver pictures and stuff that have watermarks on it because we haven't cleared it yet. And it's how the early versions, but it'll be enough to go through the story. So they put together a 40-minute presentation, and they had KROQ the early years, and then KROQ, as they ascended to greatness, and then they had Loveline,
right?
KROQ, which I hosted for a decade, And I guess I was
Kevin and Bean.
And they had like Jimmy Meets Adam, and the whole thing was sort of titled that way. And I said, all right, well, this will be good. And then we showed the doc for the partisan crowd, and they really liked it. And then I kept asking people who weren't familiar with KROQ, they didn't grow up in LA, if they'd heard of KROQ, and they were like, I grew up in Indiana, but I really enjoyed the doc. I wanted to see more. Like, it was good. It was it was an interesting story. The only problem is I was not depicted within the story for not even one frame. There was literally no likeness of me. And when they were talking about Adam Meets Jimmy and Loveline and Kevin and Bean and Adam Jones, it was all bereft of any photographs. I sat down and did a 3-hour interview. Like, they had Jimmy popping up all the time. They had Kevin and Bean popping up all the time.
Producer.
They had
dead people.
They had dead people popping up all the time. They had Michael. Then Mike Catherwood, who took over for me on Loveline for a brief period of time. Wow. He was featured. They had Ricky Rackman, who hosted before me on Loveline. And they were all talking about me. As well as Jimmy was talking about
telling your story.
There was telling my story. There were no visual representations of me in this doc that I made, that my people made, talking about me. Now, what is that?
Wait, did you make it or somebody else made it?
Well, my team made it, meaning...
So your team just eliminated you, kind of. Just interesting.
I was not in one frame of this 40-minute thing, but I was spoken about a lot in it. And it was like, and then Adam joined Loveline. And then Jimmy was like, and then I met Adam when I was doing this boxing match. And then Adam showed up. And but I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't represented.
Oh, man, that's...
Imagine Michael Jordan not being in The Last Dance.
Right.
Like, they're all just talking about it and telling this story. You have the footage of Michael Jordan, but you're not going to put him in it.
Does your team like you?
I don't know.
Okay.
Evidently not.
He's on to us.
Bizarre. And I sat down just like Jimmy, just like Carson Daly, just like the program directors and Kevin Bean. I sat down for my long form 3-hour interview.
Right.
There's plenty of digital footage of me discussing meeting Jimmy or joining Kevin and Bean or joining Loveline. I mean, Dr. Drew was peppered. Dr. Drew popped up 14 times in this thing. Kevin and Bean 9 times. Jimmy 11 times. Like Carson Daly 3 times. Like
I like that you're counting.
Person that was interviewed, bands you've never heard of, Pow, front and center.
Was Fraser Smith in it? Is he a KROQ guy?
No, Shadow Stevens was in it, who was original. Every old jock you've never heard of was popped up all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody but me.
It went everywhere.
But remember, the marching orders we're doing an Adam Carolla weekend in Dallas, and we want to show the KROQ doc. I didn't say... make sure and don't eliminate me. I just thought there's context.
We'll do the right thing.
We're going for my crowd for the weekend to show them my KROQ doc. So just put together 40 minutes.
For time, they're like, well, let's leave Adams out because he's going to talk about it anyway.
It was 40 minutes, and, we covered a lot of ground. And it was
I'm trying to help the team.
I don't know. I don't know what it was.
It's 40 minutes. I mean, granted, they did talk about the history before Adam was there, but like the last half of the showing was all just stories about Adam without Adam. And yeah, it might have been maybe they thought you would do it live. I don't know. But it's kind of like, actors they're excited they're going to be in a movie, and then they watch the movie and they've been cut out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was Adam, but it was his own movie.
Adam Carolla was suspiciously absent.
The not so Adam Carolla doc.
I mean,
especially the egregious part were just the parts that were directly about you.
Oh, Kennedy, who's now on Fox.
Oh, right. Okay.
Chris Hardwick was in it multiple times. Kennedy was in it. I mean, I could just keep going.
Wow.
But they weren't talking about Chris Hardwick or Kennedy. They were talking about me, and then I wouldn't be represented there. It's weird. It's a weird life.
I want to see this doc.
It's great.
Is it finished?
No.
No. If it was finished, we would have shown it.
Mike Catherwood really kind of put you in a nutshell. They did grab a really great clip of that. Is that when you're talking to Adam Carolla, you're almost intimidated by how quick his brain works. It was something along those lines. So that was a really nice thing. And when I saw that part, I was totally nodding my head like, yeah I understand that. I get that.
You know who else was intimidated? The editor.
Yes.
He's so intimidated. He didn't want to risk putting Adam Carolla in his project.
I can't watch his footage.
He was scared to watch it. Yeah, it's a sin.
Well, it wasn't all bad news because at some point Saturday night after I did 45 minutes of stand-up, I was going to bring out John Popper and his keyboardist Ben, and they were going to do some sort of stripped-down, lovely Blues Traveler and John Popper songs. And then we were going to end the night with Chris's band up there, along with John's keyboardist, sort of backing up John for the Blues Traveler hits.
Yeah, we learned some tunes to play along with John and Ben.
I'll tell you, it sounded great. We don't have to take my word for it. We can play a couple minutes of. We playing Hook here?
We got one more for you, and then we're gonna say thanks. But you guys have been absolutely fucking awesome.
Such a great crowd.
Where is this?
This is in Dallas.
And,
The Sheridan. Sorry if that's what you were asking.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I figured. I have to sit
The
between
decaf
people and
house.
tell other people what they're saying.
Dawson,
Appreciate you here. Yeah, Dawson
I'm
did a
missing
stand-up
somebody
set.
else.
Dawson
Adam
did.
Carolla, that's right.
Dawson did a killer stand-up set.
You do that on purpose?
So thanks for having
great.
us, and this is for you. It doesn't matter what I say, as long as I sing with inflation. The need to be loving, some little trip of reflection. But I got nothing so far, and I to keep it up for as long as the day. And it don't matter who you are. If I'm doing my job, it's your about that way. Because the force brings you back. I ain't taking no lie. Love brings you back. Oh, they can realize. I am being insincere. If I got something any offense to my confession, what you did to confuse the issue to familiar heroes from long ago. No matter how much beat I loved her, when they depend on refuse to grow. If that love brings me back, I am telling you no lie. Love brings you back. Oh, they can realize.
That was so great.
Jeez.
Oh my God.
Just an honor, just like to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you knew John Popper was good before this weekend, but after really seeing him do what he does,
yeah,
it was just, it's like, it's moving. It's
just really live and raw like that.
It's really great to see someone. It doesn't really matter if it's singing. You know, it's why I like watching ladies gymnastics. You know, I don't know anything about it. It's like that person's at the height of their game.
Right.
They're doing something no one else can do.
He has
and they just
absolute control
stuck the landing
of his art.
Like, yes. I mean, you just see his like mic control and everything. And by the way, that was just a ballroom with folding chairs.
Right.
Like that wasn't an
concert,
acoustically whatevered theater. That I was on stage and it was a little tinny in there, and he's just such an artist. It's crazy. And also
he's fearless.
He takes it seriously. He does not just show up and like hammer check and belt out a couple of tunes and go home. He's like, I'm earning this. I mean, I was impressed,
but
and I already was impressed.
He does.
Yeah,
he
really
does.
does.
So yeah, he wants to entertain. His voice is incredible too.
Yeah, and he goes for it. Like there are artists who won't hit those high notes because let's say they got a lot older or anything. He'll go there. He'll always go for it.
Yeah, he doesn't do the cop out where he holds the mic out. You know, you hit the high note, audience. No, Dawson, I mean, were you as impressed as we were?
I was blown away. We were able to record the whole thing too. What really impressed me was the way Chris's band, Loxy, just kind of got in there and became Blues Traveler.
Yes.
And it was funny. Maybe we'll get to this later. But when they played Runaround, at the end of Runaround, you can audibly hear John Popper look at the band and go, I thought I was going to have to give you guys a look and let you know but you guys, hey, great, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Loxy was strong.
They were prepped, and the band sounded like they'd been playing together for a long time with John. This didn't
it sounded like a Blues Traveler concert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, now on to something more disappointing. I don't know if you guys are with me. But
back to decaf.
No, this is terrestrial radio.
Okay.
I don't know, and I should give Eleanor a plug, which is the Comedy Store podcast available wherever you listen to podcasts. But this is not that. This is me doing radio to promote this concert earlier in the day, in the morning, and everything else. I won't get into the nuts and the bolts of Mike August screwing up the time. We had to be at the radio station and leaving John Popper behind, and then screaming that the guy told him that, and then the guy screaming at me, I will show you the email with the time on it that I sent Mike. So he says, I'm wrong. I have an email with the time. I was like, I got you. All right. Anyway. Thank God I got in at 1 last night. It's 7:10 in the morning, and we're hustling to the station a half hour before we need to be there. But all right, let's put all that aside. I forgot about radio, guys, but I did get my number one answer, which I get a lot of. So first thing, there was a lot of, I was like in studio for one of my radio hits, and I could hear the guy going, he's in studio? If I knew he was in studio, then I would have come out. I didn't know he was in studio. It's like they cannot exchange information. There's no, even in this in this day of this miraculous day of emails and texts and stuff, there's no way to glean that I'm in Dallas and coming in the studio. And the guy's like, I would love to do it in person, but I didn't know he was coming in. There's that. There's also the part where they have no information about what you're doing. So what is this thing? Or where is it? You know, and it's always, Mike, do they have the date? Do they have the gig? Do they have the venue? Do they have the time? They got it all. They've got it all. They never know. It's always, so when is this? And then what is this again? It was also nice that the guy who put the thing together wrote, at some point he wrote Adam Carolla with John Parker. And of course, well, to be fair to the Parker who gave him the information, he had one version of John Popper and the other one said John Parker. And then, of course, he's going to be appearing with John Parker from Blues Traveler. Like, John Popper. He's like, yeah, well, it says Parker. Yeah, all right. Well, you could probably do that math.
All the John Parker fans are going to be bombed.
So there's that.
Yeah,
but,
right.
but then there was this one, which I always enjoy. The no information. We don't know what's going on. When are we doing this? It's always, that's what radio
Do you
is.
think they do that to try to stay like, I don't know what's going on? Try to stay hip or what's happening? We're cool, right?
Yeah, we don't know. We're oblivious to everything, man.
There's an element of that. I do believe there's an element.
Because I hate morning radio, but...
We're too cool for school and we're not here to plug. So what are you doing again? And also there's a lazy factor to it. But I do get my favorite one. My favorite one is after doing all this, later on Saturday afternoon or something, Mike said, I got this syndicated thing. You can just call into this syndicated thing. You're going to call in like 5 minutes. Can you call like right now? I said, yeah, I'm in my room. He goes, all right, call this number. I got the number from the producer. He gives me the number, and he goes, call this number, and you'll be on the air in 2 minutes. I go, okay, I'll do that. I call the number. This happens frequently, and some guy just picks up, like, hello? And I'm like, hey, this is Adam Carolla. I'm going on the air, and he goes, why'd you call this number? Which I always love, which is, you could say they gave you the wrong number. And you could say, we have a studio number, and they must have given you the producer
what
number.
What kind of responses?
Right.
Why'd you call this number?
Well, there was a bunch of numbers, and I said, let me pick this one.
It was the number that was given to me by your people. That there could be no other...
Right.
There's no other way this went on other than your people gave us the number, except for they gave us the number to the producer and not the in-studio number, whatever happens every single time. It's more the response, like, why?
Right.
Why? I'm sitting in a hotel room. Somebody told me to call this number. That's the only version of this story that would make sense.
It's so
then they go, you shouldn't have called this number. This is my home number. I'm the producer. It's like, how does that number even get? Now, look, with Mike, you never know. It's impossible to say.
That's the beauty of it.
But Mike didn't say I got two numbers. I got the hotline number and I got this other number. He just went, here's the number they gave me. They just gave him a number.
It's happened a million times to me.
That's the number I call.
This isn't the number you call. Call this one. A million
Half
times.
of all radio stations you call into is why did you call this number? Which seems like a thing they could straighten.
It's going to turn to who this?
Straighten out,
like,
right?
What are you doing?
Yes.
You know somebody's calling in. Why are you doing it? Oh, this is pre-recorded. I hate morning radio because they're mostly phony too, because there's that element of, whoa, what are you doing in town? What are we doing? You know what I'm doing. You got the email.
You got the email.
Everybody knows what's happening.
Yeah, you and John Parker playing a concert.
Me and my grandfather are in town.
Yes.
It's just like crazy stuff. Or they, always do the wacky, hey, it's morning radio. I always play Laugh Girl when we do it on the Comedy Store podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Rick Ingram does the best morning radio guy. And then I'm just, the girl's always in the corner laughing. So I'm Laugh Girl, but I
Laugh
can't
Girl on
stand.
this show.
There you go. Look
that's
at you.
Chris.
Let me hear you laugh. It's not good enough.
I know. I'm working on it. I'm new.
He needs to be inspired.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
morning
know.
radio, it's just
You'll
too
hear it.
much.
Plus, he thinks he's a big-time musician now
I think.
because he's on there with,
I
I'll tell
played a
you-
Grammy-winning song with a Grammy-winning
That's
artist.
right.
Right? That's amazing. I'll tell you who needs decaf. Morning radio people. They got to calm down.
Yeah, that'll
Yes.
They
mellow
got to
them
calm
out.
down. Let's give
I
them
agree.
the decaf coffee.
I got to tell you, the highlight of the weekend for me was watching your bandmates just enjoy the shit out of themselves up on stage playing with John Popper.
We had such a blast.
It's insane.
I mean, he'll get mad I'm saying this, but my drummer, Mikey, he cried.
That's
I believe it.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
that's
was
cool,
crying.
though.
That was a bucket list situation. I think Mikey or what's your bass guy's name? Will?
Yeah.
One of them kept saying backstage, like, I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you. But then he would keep pausing and goes, I know you didn't have anything to do with it, but I still want to thank you. And I said, well, I had something to do with it. And he goes, well, I know, but it's not your decision. I go, look, if I were never born, then you wouldn't
Right.
be playing with John Popper. Let's just, I want
actually was your decision,
I want
too.
everybody, thank you. Please just, your relationship with me, forget about what I do, what I know, what I like. If I wasn't born, where would you be? And if you weren't born, where would I be? And I know where I would be, here. And I know where you would be, not here.
Maybe
so just break it down to that very basic element of let's see whose life would change more if the other weren't born. How about that, bitch?
That's just good science.
It's just good science.
Maybe he got it from the documentary. He wanted to leave you out of it.
Well, if I wasn't born, I would have been just as present in that doc.
Yeah, very true.
Although I don't know who they would have been talking about. Right. All right. The Comedy Store podcast is where you get Ellen Kerrigan's stuff, and also Ladylike comedy special available on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Music as well. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Usual. Stephen A. Smith, a very revealing interview right after this. Stephen A. Smith in studio, Straight Shooter, a memoir, which is a memoir of second chances and first takes. And it's available as you hear this in bookstores everywhere. Good to see you again, Stephen A.
Good to see you, man. How you doing? How's everything?
I'm doing good. I'm a fan of yours.
Thank you, man.
And I realize
I'm mutual.
Thanks. I realize I'm now at the point where I'm just a fan of anyone who gives their opinion.
Right.
And I don't even care if I agree with it or not.
Right.
And I'm not saying I disagree with your opinion.
Sure.
I'm just saying anyone who's shooting straight, I just believe it's your opinion.
Right.
And I don't care if it's you or Charles Barkley or whoever. I go, if that's your opinion, then I'm a fan.
I'm a little bit different than you in that regard. I mean, on one hand, I'll adopt that thinking. I mean, I do have that thinking. I totally appreciate it. But you got to have some idea of what the hell you're talking about, too. You got a lot of people that spout off at the mouth and they engage in no research whatsoever. They have no rhyme or reason. You can throw facts in their face and they don't give a damn.
No, agreed.
And you got to give a damn about the facts.
Oh, I agree with that, but I will get you to a baseline of me appreciating you if I believe you believe what you're saying, even if it's wrong.
Okay, that's true too. That's true too. So, in other words, we're both allergic to liars, and we have no affection or affinity whatsoever for somebody who's intentionally dishonest and disingenuous. I can go with that.
But you have to earn your way into that position.
Yeah.
And there's a number of guys, there's your Charles Barkleys or Howard Sterns or whatever, and you go, those guys have made their living speaking their mind.
Right.
It's easy once you get to that place, but getting to that place is tough because that's where you get a lot of criticism and sometimes even deplatformed or fired. So
no question.
Was that always a mindset for you, or
Always.
did you go, I'm playing the game for a little while until I can get in?
No, that was always my mindset. I started off as a newspaper reporter, working as a high school reporter for the New York Daily News. I had interned. I did internships. I was going to college at Winston-Salem State University, which is an HBCU. I worked at the Winston-Salem Journal, which is a local daily paper. I worked at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution as an intern, and then I get into the business. I start off as a clerk at the Greensboro News and Record, and then I went to high school, covering high school sports for the New York Daily News, and then the Philadelphia Inquirer came calling. And so for me, my claim to fame was that I always called it like I saw it. Even if I was writing a game story, if you played like garbage, I said so. If you played good, I said that. If you played great, I said that. I made sure to do everything that I could to visualize for you as accurately as I possibly could the level of production that you were putting forth. I didn't sit up there and said, well, this person had, shot 2 for 20. If you don't know basketball, you might not think that's a big deal. But if you know basketball, that's a very, very bad deal. And so I treated, that average reader and what have you, just basically illuminating things for them in a way that made it very, very plain what was going on. And that was always my MO.
Questions about historically black universities, colleges. First, I know nothing. So,
okay.
Are there any white people enrolled at all?
Yes.
There are?
Yes.
What percentage?
Yes. I'm guessing. I don't know, but I would say on anywhere from 3 to 5%.
And
that might be pushing it.
Is that person looked at as down with the cause or an agitator or nothing?
Nothing. And what I mean, I don't mean they're looked at as nothing. I mean it's neither. It's neither down with the cause nor being seen as an agitator. Just like you'd have an abundance of individuals, let's say of African American descent, that go to predominantly white institutions, and there are scholarship opportunities, or that's a university that they wanted to go to, and even though it's predominantly white, you'd see some black sprinkled on campus and what have you. Well, you know what? The same is applicable to HBCUs. In order for HBCUs to get government funding, to get assistance from the government, you had to be just as open, to being receptive to white individuals coming to that institution, as white institutions had to be open to black people coming to those institutions.
I'm wondering,
so you had to do that.
I'm wondering if there's one white dude who was the first guy to integrate a historically black college.
Well, there had to be a first. I just wouldn't know who the hell it is. Not me.
Where's our Harriet Tubman? Find this dude's name. Build a shrine to him.
I got you. I understand, but I don't know. I really don't. If I did, I would tell you. I'm going to look that up because that's never been asked that question ever. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to try to find out who that is.
It's got to be one dude. It's got to be in the 80s.
Right.
Probably, maybe even the 70s. Yeah. Maybe it's
probably 70s.
Maybe his name is Marty or Hank. Got to figure that one out.
Got to figure it out.
What's your power rankings for sport? I know you love the NBA, and I know you love college hoops as well, but I'm trying to figure out where UFC falls
in terms of my passion.
And boxing, and
In terms of my passion.
Yeah.
Basketball first. Boxing second. National Football League third. College football fourth. And right now, it would be UFC at number 5. And the UFC, the only reason I say that is because of the actual fights themselves. If you're talking about a main event, if you're telling me that Kamaru Usman is going against Masvidal, I had to see that. Thank you. If you're telling me that Ngannou is going against Stipe, I got to see that. I got to see that. If you're telling me, John Bones Jones is getting ready to fight Francis Ngannou, I'm sorry, that's going to move up to number 3, number 2. It depends on the fights.
Yes.
Pretty much with UFC and boxing. But I love my boxing. I don't want to see a bunch of wrestling. I don't want to see you leaning up against one another, putting somebody in a chokehold or whatever. I want knockouts. Even if it's in the UFC, I want knockouts. And that's why I prefer boxing over UFC. But UFC is fantastic, and those guys are some of the greatest athletes in the world.
I love watching you and Teddy Atlas, and I love watching Teddy Atlas have a meltdown
about
my
buddy.
Corruption and boxing.
That's my buddy. He gets on me all the time. He keeps, stop using those big words. Stop using those big words. I could just say, that's ridiculous. Stop using those big words. So he's funny, but that's my guy.
So for you, you start off, you got a lot of brothers and sisters. You grew up in Queens.
Yeah. Youngest of 6.
Poverty.
Youngest of 6, 4 older sisters. My brother that passed, he's 9 years older than me, passed away in a car accident in 1992.
Basil, correct?
That's his name, correct.
And so for you, what's it look like early? Is it all about sports, but about playing sports rather than reporting on sports?
Are you talking about early in terms of when I was younger?
Yeah.
Sports saved me. From the standpoint that to have what now we know to be undiagnosed dyslexia, to go through that, to get left back.
Grades-wise?
Get left back completely in the 4th grade. I had to repeat the 4th grade because I had a 1st grade reading level. To go through all of that and then to have my sister Linda teach me how to read along with a friend of the family named Tiver. And then I get to the 7th grade. I overcome that and I get to the 7th grade, but I'm walking around with that level of insecurity all of those years, feeling like a dummy, feeling like, wondering, panicking every June when you got to take those final exams and it's going to determine what kind of grade did you get or whether or not you're going to get left back or move ahead because of reading comprehension issues. To go from that to being in the 7th grade at a parent-teacher conference and to have my professor, my teacher, Mr. Caravan, I'll never forget it, look at my mother and say, your son is not a dummy. He's a smart guy. His problem is it's not that he doesn't know. He doesn't pay attention when he's bored. When he's bored, he drifts. He doesn't hear you. He's not listening. He's not paying attention. Find out what his passion is and you'll have a star in your hands. That's how I got involved in sports. Because I got involved in sports, not playing. You're going out in the streets and you're playing in the park all the time. You're playing football on cement streets. You're playing basketball. You're playing baseball. You're doing all of that stuff. Playing baseball and softball. You're doing all of that stuff, Adam. The difference is that when I say I got involved in sports, that was watching it, studying it, being ready and preparing myself to debate with my dad or my brother or other people that are friends in the neighborhood and stuff like that, and really, really engaging in a fashion where I elevate my knowledge about the sport. That's where it all really, really started.
Is being held back or kept back, does that carry around the stigma? Because everyone who you went to school with knows you were the kid that was held. Is that sort of like being a pedophile in a prison yard or something?
Well, I wouldn't know anything about being a pedophile. But what I would tell you is that you walk around with that on your mind constantly because you feel like an idiot. You feel like a dummy. And kids, you know this, I know this, very, very few people on the planet could be more cruel than kids, and they don't really know. It's not necessarily their intent. They're just teasing you. They're just teasing you, and they don't mind hurting your feelings, not taking into account the residual damage it leaves behind, the detrimental effect that it messes with you that it brings to you mentally, and you walk around with that level of insecurity, man, and then all of a sudden the teacher tells your mother, you are smart. You just got to find something he's interested in. And then all of a sudden, I'm interested in sports. So guess what? Suddenly, not only am I interested in sports, but there's a sports topic that shows up on ABC News Nightline one day with Ted Koppel, and I'm watching it. Or Peter Jennings is talking about some big story involving an athlete. I'm talking about it. Or 60 Minutes is doing a profile of somebody talking about it. Or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post. And all of a sudden, you're reading it, and you do comprehend. Right. And you do get it. And suddenly you realize, no, I wasn't dumb after all. I just didn't listen and I just didn't comprehend because I didn't know what issues I had.
Well, you weren't engaged.
Correct.
It's interesting and a little bit gives me some hope. I was talking to Jay Leno some months back. He's dyslexic. He had a teacher pull him aside and go, like, hey, I know you don't read and you don't write very well. Why don't you give, instead of handing a book report in, do a 10-minute presentation.
Right.
And this is young Jay, not a comedian, but that's the comedian part of him.
Correct.
I'll stand in front of the class, and he gets an A. And so it's kind of nice to hear that there are people with their eyes and ears open out there that are in some position of power that can go, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not engaged. But is this a thing? Tell me what this is, because I suffer from this as well, which is once I decide something is not interesting to me, I'm out. And so it could be Real Housewives of Orange County or it could be a Napoleonic War. Right. If I'm sitting there, I'm just like, good students will go, I don't care how interesting this is to me, I'm in.
Well, here's the deal. Somebody like yourself who's done a lot of things successfully and you're renowned for it, you have the luxury of being able to make that decision. At this point in my life, I have the luxury of being able to make that decision. Imagine if you're younger and you're growing up poor and you're not aware of your options and you're told this is what you have to do to get out of that abyss, that malaise that you're in because you got to deal with these things that you have to deal with and you're not aware of your choices. Then all of a sudden it becomes more challenging because of that stuck feeling. I've always admired artists. It could be you, it could be Jay Leno, it could be anybody. I've always admired artists because what y'all don't realize that y'all have is you're brave. Somewhere along the way you said, F it, I'm betting on me. Most people are about trying to find a good job, particularly when you're younger, you're poor. At least I'm not talking about in this day and age, but as we were coming up, 70s, 80s, 90s, stuff like that, about having a job. My mother was a West Indian woman from St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, God rest her soul, and she was a person that was a registered nurse for decades. My mother was about punching that clock, going to work, not missing work, showing up every day, busting your tail to be the best that you can be at your chosen profession and going home. That was my mother's definition of success. Me, I thought like that until I got exposed to other things and saw there was far more to the world than I realized. And I was being hindered and held back from being all that I could be because I was stuck in this rut of believing this is what defines success. That's the challenge. Because when you're younger, you don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, well, you also come from a place, I come from a place, many people come from this place where you equate work with two things. It's essentially like I will sell you a piece of my life.
Right.
I will do this thing I don't want to do for 8 hours a day,
Yep.
and you will give me $11 an hour.
Yeah.
And you can essentially lease my life from me. And it's a tacit agreement, but it's an understanding. It's
Yes.
work. You don't get to do what you want.
That's right.
And I started to have these. That's how I grew up. And then I started having these weird flashes early on, which is, well, even if you made $50 an hour, you're still selling your life off for a reward, for a monetary reward.
Yeah.
And then what kind of life is that? It's a better life than getting $11 an hour, but it's still the basic same agreement. I will do this thing I don't want to do in a place I don't want to be for X amount an hour. And I thought it'd be so much better to get paid for your work or your ideas or whatever that is, rather than how many hours can I log in this place that I don't want to be in.
There is nothing wrong with that. That is a level of thinking, to me, that should be applauded. We should appreciate it now more than ever before. But I would tell you that as a black man, it's a challenge, because somewhere along the way, you're looking at the power structure. You're looking at the decision makers. And far more often than not, they don't look like you. They don't share your same cultural identity and background and experiences. And because of some of the things that we've dealt with in our society, and I've talked to guys like, I've seen you on Sean Hannity before. I talk to Sean Hannity quite often, his crazy ass self. He's crazy, but I'm good with him. We're good.
Well, his opinion is definitely his opinion.
That's absolutely true. But we talk about things like this. I've talked about it with guys like Mark Levin, to Don Lemon and others, and opposite ends of the spectrum, of course. The thing about it is that you're going through those things, and you don't see people who look like you, who identify with you, that make these decisions. And all of a sudden, you'll have to trust that they'll be receptive to it, because the money isn't just printed and handed to you. You got to go out there and earn it. And in order to earn it, you have to have a champion, somebody who believes in you, willing to take the chance on you, you're willing to roll the dice on you, et cetera, et cetera. And you really don't trust it. I'll give you a sports analogy. With baseball, we look at football. The National Football League has become, without question, the most popular sport in North America, okay?
Good.
We see what the National Football League brings to the table. It's a ratings magnet.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA is pretty damn good. It's doing pretty well. They both have a younger demographic that also gravitates to them. Mm-hmm. What's the problem with baseball? Baseball doesn't have the younger demographic. Their fans get older and older and older every day.
Right.
Because they haven't ingratiated themselves with the younger audience, black, white, and otherwise. Well, why is that? Here's the reason why. Because unlike those other sports, the MLB, Major League Baseball, is asking for more trust. They can draft you. They can pay you a few $1 million. You still got to go through AA, still got to go through AAA before you go to the majors. And there's a criteria, a litmus test per se, just a boot camp-like period that you have to endure before they decide whether or not you're worthy of being at that next level. Well, in order to endure that, it comes with a trust in the system. Not just a trust in your ability, but a trust that your ability will be seen and embraced and accepted and celebrated so you can elevate. A lot of times, black folks have a very, very hard time believing that kind of situation is going to work to our advantage. And that's what makes it so challenging.
I'll tell you something from the poor white guy's perspective.
Please.
In terms of identifying, which is, I come from a sort of poor, broken down family. Mm-hmm. And while it was a guy who looked like me in charge, white guy,
right?
He's running the job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't identify with him at all,
right?
Because he was a successful guy who went to college and has a good family and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So even though we shared a sort of physical similarity, I still looked at myself as a million miles away from that guy because I grew up on the wrong side of the track. So there is a part of this that's a sort of physical recognition, like he looks like me, and we culturally maybe we like the same thing. But then there's a status part of it that poor people of all colors have a problem with, which I think is a big problem, where you just can't picture yourself being a part of this world.
Yeah, because you're not exposed to it. You don't know any better. And there's no one telling you differently because you haven't been exposed to it. See, that's the beauty of life. For example, although I might lament the state of affairs with our colleges in this day and age, because what education was once worth doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And that's a different subject for another day. What I will acknowledge is that the experience that you get from it, anytime you have the luxury of being able to be around people who look differently than you, that come from different cultural backgrounds or whatever, it's an automatic education. Because by virtue of being around them and seeing their mannerisms and hearing the things that they talk about and communicating and engaging in dialogue with them, you learn more. You just told me something about being a young white poor guy working for somebody that obviously that isn't the case for them, but they happen to be the white. There's no connection in your mind whatsoever. You have to tell a black person that. A black person doesn't assume
that you see two.
Exactly, which is what I'm saying. A black person is not going to see two white folks together and think that they don't share any kind of identity with one another. We're going to look at you as being you, and this is us. And let's find a way to get along. That's what we should be thinking. But we're certainly not going to think that you have no identification with them whatsoever. That's not what we're going to think by and large.
Oh, I got another white guy thought.
Sure.
Which is it's funny. I was just talking about this on another podcast. I've said it more than once.
Yeah.
In almost every house I've lived in, have had a crazy white asshole neighbor. Fucked up, calling Department of Building and Safety, checking unsanitary living conditions.
Yes.
I've had some doozies. I had an old white lady that lived across the street, called the cops on me for a New Year's Eve party that she called the cops at 8 in the evening of a Saturday night on New Year's Eve. Blah, blah, blah. Had another, same one called the cops again when our phone lines got crossed. It's a long story. I've always said if I were black, I would say I know that person's a racist because why else would they engage in this behavior?
Yes.
And one of the things that I always say is the ultimate white privilege is you get to walk around and go, that person's just an asshole.
Right.
This has nothing to do with my skin color because she's white, I'm white, my crazy old neighbor at the other house is white.
Right.
They're still calling the cops. They're still calling Department of Building Safety.
That's right.
And I would not blame you or David Allen Greer or any black person if you thought this had to be racism because there's nothing else that would justify this.
You're 1,000% right. The first thing we would think, that's a racist ass woman. That's the first thing we would think. We wouldn't hesitate. We wouldn't hesitate.
I wouldn't blame you for 1 second.
And in this day and age, we call her Karen.
Right.
You know, because of the woman in Central Park. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to call the police. This black guy
bird watching.
Bird watching. That's what he was doing.
Right.
You know, and so that's what we call it today. And the irony in all of that is I know plenty of black women named Karen. But we're clearly not talking about a black woman named Karen. We're talking about the white woman whose name was Karen, and that's what we're doing. But in the end, you're absolutely right. There's no escaping that, and you do have the luxury of not looking at it as a racist situation because black folks certainly would. We would automatically assume, yeah, it's her racist ass. That's why she's doing this because we're black, without question.
Yeah, I think you'd have there's no logical other conclusion. Right. And that's what I would feel when I would live next to these people is what the fuck are they doing?
That's right.
So for you, now how do you get to college when you're dyslexic and you've been held back a grade?
Well, I've been held back a grade, but the bottom line is, number one, I fixed that before I got to college and I could ball. So I got to Winston-Salem State University on a basketball scholarship.
How good a player were you?
I could ball, I could shoot, but I cracked my kneecap in half my first year, so I never had really much of a college career. I had a college basketball scholarship, and then I cracked my kneecap in half. In high school, I could really ball, I could shoot. I averaged double digits, but I came off the bench because I was 5'9", 130 pounds. At the time, you could blow me away for crying out loud, but I could really shoot. And so because of that, that really, really helped me. And I was a street baller, to be quite honest with you, because when you were growing up poor and stuff like that, unless you were the creme de la creme, the elite, the Stephon Marburys of the world, the Kenny Andersons before him, the Kenny Smiths before him, people like that, because I'm from Queens, New York, so I brought up some Queens names. The bottom line is that you found yourself playing in the park far more often than not. And so in the park, I could really shoot, I could really ball, I could go up against anybody, but I was a weakling. And I had weak knees from playing on the cement all of those times throughout the years. That's me right there. And so that's what happened. And so when that happened, and that's just the way it goes, and I never really had a chance to show what I could do.
Yeah. Did you have a net on the park basketball?
No.
I hated no net.
No.
It was so
I hated
unsatisfying.
Yeah. In the park, we didn't have it. We was on 204th Street in Hollis Avenue.
At least put a chain one up.
And not only that, at nighttime, the only light was the light hovering over the stoplight on the corner of 2/4 rather in Hollis Avenue, and the light emanating from it was the only light that you saw where you could see the rim. That's why my jump shot was butter. It was special because there was no net. So all I had was the rim with no net with limited light. So I really had to focus to shoot, and it made me a better shooter. I would shoot like a minimum of 200 to 300 jump shots a day.
It's crazy how much energy you can have towards something you enjoy and it's engaging to you, and how little focus and energy you can have about stuff you don't care about.
Yeah. You don't want to be bored, or you don't want to be insufficient. Like if you're talking about a subject and everybody in the room understands it but you're going to want to talk about something else, you're going to want to leave.
Right.
Now, if you're very knowledgeable about it and you've got 2 cents to add, you're very interested in it. And so it's just that kind of mentality, which is why for me personally, I'm 55 years old. I've got a sports background, but you'll see me talking about politics. You'll see me talking about news, social justice issues. You'll see me talking about sports. You'll see me talking about things that go on in the world of pop culture and entertainment. The list goes on and on. Why? Because I want to maintain my own interest. I don't want to find myself bored by certain subjects and dialogues where all of a sudden, because it dispirits you. And ultimately you get to a point where you're not that interested in talking about it, and it shows. And that's not good when you're an on-air personality 5 days a week for a minimum of 2 hours a day. I mean, you got to make sure that you're passionate about a lot of things. You can't do that unless you educate yourself, unless you find something that's compelling to you and that you're interested in.
Good. Let's talk hockey.
Oh, no.
I
can't do it for you.
I don't know anything. I come from North Hollywood.
Right.
There was an ice rink at the Sears or something 5 miles away. It costs money. If you played hockey, you had to buy equipment.
You ever heard my line about what I say about hockey? You ever heard? I don't know if you ever heard
Tell
it.
it to me. I'll see if I
Only
know.
thing I know about hockey is that the puck is black.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't know a damn thing else about hockey. And this is somebody that knows the National Hockey League Commissioner, Gary Bettman, who's a good man and has been inviting me to hockey games for years, and I keep promising them I'm going to go, and I'm going to have to go. I got to keep my damn word, damn it. And my daughter, Nyla, wants me to take her with me rather to a hockey game, and I keep promising her I'm going to do it, and that's what I'm going to do it. But I don't know anything, and I mean anything about hockey.
Well, when it comes back to sort of discrimination and sports and getting folks involved and all this kind of stuff, soccer, big international game, the biggest international game, because it's one ball will keep a whole village occupied for 8 hours. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not. I've given it some thought. It's got to be true. It's the cheapest way to entertain a whole group of 10-year-olds for the day. All you need is flat dirt and one ball.
That's true.
And football, they would give you the pads, you would check it out.
Baseball, you need the equipment. Even basketball, you need the rims.
A little bit. But hockey, first thing you need is a pair of $80 skates.
Yes.
My parents were out.
Right.
Much less shoulder pads, helmets.
That's what you're thinking. Black folks are thinking about the ice. It's not our thing. Not our thing. It's not what we do. You'll find exceptions to every rule, no doubt about it. But black folks ain't interested in ice. It's not what we do. There's basketball, baseball, football, boxing, UFC. All right, fine. Start talking to us about ice and watch what we do. It's not what we do.
Racially sensitive question about ice.
Okay.
Black folk, you don't see a ton of them on the water polo team per se.
No.
Not a water.
No.
Not water.
Well,
but Ice is just water frozen. And maybe that would be a good thing through the eyes of a black man.
You could say that. Let me tell you something.
Or it could melt.
Black folks don't have any problems with water. We love the beach. You understand? West Indies and beyond, St. Thomas, Tortola, St. Croix, Barbados, all of that stuff. We ain't no problem with that. You'll see a whole bunch of black people there. Talk to them about ice. I promise you, 99% of them are going to be like, you can have that. We ain't trying to do that. We ain't trying to do that. I'm trying to tell you right now, that's not what we do. You understand? And I mean, listen, you see a lot of folks, and you know, one of my boys lives in Minneapolis. I literally look at his children and then look at them. How could you do this to them? How could you do this to them? The weather's that damn cold. Chicago. I don't want to see Chicago other than the months of June to September. I don't want to see Chicago. The wind alone, before you even get to the actual temperature, you think about the wind and that breeze and how it hits you. I have no interest.
All right.
Zero.
No ice.
No.
I know nothing about hockey as well, but I will say this. I appreciate hockey. I don't know anything about it, never played it, can't play it, but I look at it and I go, those guys are good.
Damn good.
And
ice skates. You ever try ice skating?
Yeah.
All right, you good at it?
Not really.
Let me tell you something right now. How far is that TV? What you say?
10 feet.
10 feet?
Yeah.
I couldn't make it halfway to there on ice skates.
Really?
I mean, listen, my daughter laughed so hard because she convinced her daddy to go to some ice skating ring with her in her class about 5 years ago. And I swear to you, they were no more than 15 feet from me. And I bust my ass at least 3 times. At least 3 times. And I had to just like literally crawl on my knee. I'm a grown man. I'm on ESPN. Okay, people know who I am. And literally, I'm in the ice rink, crawling to the board just to pull myself up and literally step by step. You saw that old episode of The Honeymooners when Alice convinced Ralph Cramden, her husband, to go roller skating, and he could barely move. That's how pathetic I was on ice skates. It's very, very bad.
I got a sport I like a lot less than hockey.
What?
Lacrosse.
Never tried it.
I don't appreciate it.
Why?
I see highlights. I don't get it. I see hockey highlights and I go, whew. Yeah, those guys are fast.
They got fast. They got skills. They can skate their ass off. All of that stuff is true. But lacrosse, you're right. But hey, listen, Jim Brown starred in it.
I know, but then he got out of it immediately.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Back with more Stephen A. right after this. All right, Stephen A. Smith joining us. The book, Straight Shooter. It's available, as you hear this, wherever you find finer books. You know, every time I talk to you, I think, ever try stand-up? Because I do feel like that is something you're uniquely qualified to do.
Oh, my God.
And you must have had somebody bring that up a time or two.
Well, my manager, Rashawn McDonald, brings that up religiously. He says I'm a lot funnier than I realize, and he thinks that I can do stand-up comedy because I love comedians. I love people who have an art for knowing how to make people laugh. I'm a huge Cat Williams fan. I grew up being a huge Eddie Murphy fan. Of course, I knew about Richard Pryor. And Martin Lawrence can't find a bigger fan than me with his show Martin from years ago, from the 90s. Guys like that. And then today you got the Jay Farrells of the world who can imitate practically anybody. And you see Kenan Thompson on Saturday Night Live, along with Chris Redd, who just departed from Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. The list just goes. Monique, I was a fan of, various others. Comedians do it for me. I was a big, I love everybody loves Raymond. I loved King of Queens. I just love those. I love comedy, and I would tell you, even though I don't think I have a snowball's chance of pulling it off, the one time I was willing to try it was a little over a year ago. It was August 23rd, 2021, and they asked me to host Jimmy Kimmel Live. Bob Iger, then CEO, who had departed and had emeritus status before he was walking away completely, convinced then CEO Bob Chapek and his number 2 Peter Rice and these guys to let me host Jimmy Kimmel one night. And I said, okay, I always wanted to do it. It was on my bucket list to host late night. And my dumb ass didn't realize that, wait a minute, there's about a 15, 18-minute monologue that I've got to do. And I got to be funny.
You got to read cue cards.
I was scared. I'm telling you right now, I've been in TV for over 20 years. I have never been scared in my life. This scared, rather, in my life. And I'm one of those guys that, people get nervous, they're sweating. People get nervous and, they got to get a drink or whatever. Me, I have to go to the toilet. Okay? And sometimes it's just once. This show, in the last hour, I went to the toilet 5 times. I was so scared that I thought that I was going to shit in myself when I went out on stage. Okay? When I went out on stage. I mean, I was that petrified. But the one thing that I had to, and this was the funny part about it. Originally, as scared as I was, I got there. When I got there, I simmered down a bit because, at ESPN, I got a producer here, producer there, maybe one writer, whatever. I walked into Jimmy Kimmel's room. They had 12 writers, man. They had 12 writers, about eight producers, everything. I was like this. Oh, I'm good. I'm straight. I got a crew. I didn't know it was like this. This is beautiful. And then we went through, and I'm sitting there. No, I don't want to do that one. Let me do this joke. Let me do that joke. And I'm literally picking out. They ain't picking out. I'm picking out the joke. Yeah, I'll do this. Let me try. I could do something with this. I could do something with that. And then like 45 minutes before it was showtime, all of those people, the segment producers, the writers, and everything, they were just sitting around looking like there was a death in the family. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then I figured it out. They were like, we helped you out. You got the writers here, you got the producers here. You on your own now. They didn't say it, but that was the look. You on your own. This is you. And it was that look, and everybody just sat down, and it was like a damn funeral. I'm looking at them, I'm like this. I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then I just walked, and it wasn't until they opened the curtains and they said, Stephen A. Smith. I don't know what happened to me, but the lights came on and I was just ready.
Yeah.
And I didn't trip over any script. I didn't hesitate. I didn't stumble. I didn't do anything. And that was the only night that I did it. And the only person that had beat me in the ratings was Stephen Colbert.
Wow.
I had the second largest ratings that night at like 1.7 million.
That's amazing.
I was amazed. Now, they never called me back.
How about reading the cue cards?
No, that doesn't.
As a former dyslexic person.
No, nothing like that. I don't have those issues anymore. And a lot of times, more often than not, it's a prompter as opposed to the cue cards. But I have no problem. But I have no problem reading whatsoever.
I would say prompter, but Kimmel used cue cards forever. So that's
well. What I do is this. First of all, it's not even a trick. It's just reality. I read the prompter, but I read what's in the prompter before it's in the prompter. Then when it gets in the prompter, I read it again. So I have an idea. And then I also remember I'm not married to every single word and every single syllable. It's the spirit of the content that's in the prompter that you're trying to capture. It's not just reading it. It's about understanding, all right, this is what it is, and knowing for yourself if there's a punchline where you want to pull that punchline. If there's a point of emphasis, you know where that point of emphasis. Nobody can do that for you. You know you. If Adam Carolla is reading copy in a prompter, it could be the same exact copy that Stephen A. Smith is reading. But for you, a point of emphasis might be in sentence 5, whereas for me, it's in paragraph 3. And I know that. And so because of it, it just comes natural.
Here's the part about being nervous in front of doing shows like that, because I've been there myself. Mm-hmm. The problem is you do a math. You go, the show starts in 45 minutes. They're loading in the audience. Yep. They're starting to turn the lights on. The camera guys are getting behind the cameras. And you think, if I'm this nervous now, that when they open the curtain and the light hits me, I'm going to be, if I'm this nervous and I'm sitting in the green room, then how nervous am I going to be when I walk out there?
Right.
And you get fooled by that. But the reality is when you walk out there, your experience and the way you've always dealt with adversity, and some people have fight, some people have flight, but it all kicks in, and you're so much better when you walk out. The most nervous, Evel Knievel was probably more nervous a half hour before the jump than he was in the air.
Yeah.
And that's really how we're all wired.
I will tell you this about me. if you asked me to give a master class, for example, on sports journalism and stuff like that, could I do something like that? Maybe, probably, based on my experience. But this is the God's honest truth. When people come to me and they'll say, I want to be just like you, man. I want to do that. And I tell them, no, be the best you can be. Because I'm naturally me. I'm myself. And when I go in front of a crowd and the lights are on, Adam, I can honestly say from the bottom of my heart, I don't know what happens to me. My brother-in-law, he's right outside. He brings that up all the time. My sister acknowledges it as well. When the lights come on, man, I'm just up. I don't care if I had no sleep or 10 hours sleep. I don't care if I'm exhausted or wide awake. I don't care if I'm stressed and depressed or just ecstatic or what. It doesn't matter. When the lights come on, I'm looking at the audience and I'm imagining them looking at me, and I see nothing but them. And it's me. They're watching me. I'm not watching them in my attitude. They came for me. I'm giving them me, whatever me is in that moment. And that's how I am every morning on television. I can't tell you, man. Look, man, I got to get up at 6:30 every morning. I got to have a morning meeting at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the air at 10 a.m. and I'm literally on the air live for 2 hours each day, 10 hours a week. And that's just one job. And I got 3. But when the lights come on, I have more than 3 actually. But when the lights come on, I don't know what comes over me. I'm never tired at that moment. I've gone to commercial break and go like this, like literally exhausted. And then the minute the light comes on, I'm wide awake, energized, and ready. Yeah. I don't know how to explain.
It's a blessing. I always put it this way because I used to box and teach boxing, right. And I would say 9 out of 10 guys, they get punched in the face and they think, man, that hurt. I don't want to get hit again.
Right.
1 out of 10 thinks, oh, I'm going to kill this guy for punching me in the face.
Right.
That's the guy who's a great boxer.
Right.
It's not natural.
Yeah.
Most everyone gets hit once and goes, well, that hurt. I don't want that to happen. But if you're angry and you think, now I'm going to punish this guy, then you'll usually be a pretty damn good boxer. And that's the same way with the lights. Yeah. I'd say 9 out of 10 lights go on, people seize.
Right.
But the one comes up.
I don't know how to explain what's happened. I
think it's kind of a gift, almost like the guy gets punched in the face and gets angry instead of scared as a gift.
True. Allen Iverson, former star player in the NBA, good friend of mine. I'm sitting down in 2008. I'm interviewing LeBron James. And before the interview starts, you're a reporter. You don't want anybody interrupting you. You don't want anybody saying anything, giving somebody a heads up, doing something like that. You know, you're ready to flow. And before the interview started, Allen Iverson walks up to LeBron James. He said, bro, I don't give a shit what you think you see in front of you. Pointing to me. He said, you don't see no pen or paper. You don't see no notepad. You don't see no notes, no anything. He said, don't you think for one damn second that this motherfucker Stephen A. don't know exactly what he wants to ask you, what he wants to know from you, and what he intends to get out of you. He said he knows. So he said, I love you, and I love him because, we just talk like that. But he said, keep your guard up because if you slip with one syllable, he's going to catch you. He knows what you said a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Don't think for 1 second his ass doesn't know. And I was like, well, damn, you done messed up my interview. You know what I'm saying? He said, I'm sorry, I couldn't let LeBron go out like that. I had to let him know. And that's what he said. He said, you don't drop your guard. He said, his exact words is, at this shit, he was talking about broadcast journalism. He said, that's that dude right there. And I always remembered that.
I wouldn't think a guy who doesn't want to practice would prep a guest that way.
That's right.
Very interesting.
That's right. But I tell you this much, he didn't want to practice, but guess what? We see load management now, dudes missing games all the time when you see Allen Iverson doing that.
Never.
That brother showed up. He just didn't want to practice beforehand, but he showed up.
He was the funnest to watch because I don't know what he was, 6'2".
6 feet.
6 feet
6
even.
feet, 165.
Yeah. So even it's funny. I thought he was small, but I'll tack on 2 inches to a small guy in the NBA because they're standing amongst giants.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But he was always the most fun to watch because it's one thing to watch a 7-footer dunk or a 6'8" guy dunk, but seeing a 6-footer dunk and do the stuff he did is just so much more visually entertaining.
I mean, when he told you he was a warrior, he wasn't lying. I mean, he walked in, and I can't tell you how many times, as a reporter, remember, this is different now because even though some people do it, when I was a beat writer for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, that's right.
Right? I'm sitting courtside. They come to the scorer's table. So, Adam, they're walking right by me. I mean, if you smoke some weed, I'd smell it right on you the minute you walk by me. You sit up there and you're sick, I could tell. You got an attitude with your coach, I could tell. You're getting in an argument with your coach or a teammate, I'm right there. I'm seeing all of it. That's how close I was. And I'm telling you right now, I saw dudes looking at situations and it was written all over their body, the nervousness, the paranoia, the fear. I remember when I was playing, I was nervous, paranoid, fear, scared if I made a mistake, the coach is going to pull me out, all of this other stuff. Allen Iverson worried about none of that. His mentality is, they got to worry about me. That's how he was. Kobe was like that too. But even though Kobe was like that, Kobe had Shaq at the beginning. Allen Iverson didn't have that. And he was a warrior, and his attitude is, they're going to have to come get me. Well, they're going to have to come get me because I'm coming for them.
Yeah, we're sort of getting back to the boxer who gets punched and gets angry instead of getting scared. And Stephen A., when the lights show up, you show up, and Iverson had his own version of that. It's situations that would intimidate, scare, and stifle and hurt the performance of most. And yet they perform better. Yeah. And that, I don't know that you can train for that. And I don't know that you can rehearse that or practice that.
And everybody's different because we live in a society where they want rules, regulations still, and you can't blame them because when you leave people to their own devices, some people operate better off of that, but more often than not, you got people trying to get over. In the case of Allen Iverson, when I was covering him one time, the night, I don't know if you remember this because I know you know your basketball a little bit, he dropped 58 points on the Houston Rockets. Mm-hmm. It was against Stevie Francis, Cuttino Mobley, and those guys. Mm-hmm. Allen Iverson was being crucified because he had gone on like a slump where he was just awful over just awful over 10 games. Couldn't hit Broadway if it was empty. It was bad, right? What people didn't know, but I knew, Allen Iverson had made this commitment because he got tired of his wife, of Coach Brown, Larry Brown, and Coach GM Billy King, Pat Groce, and everybody lecturing him about needing to get home early and, be professional, be committed. And he just went on this kick for 2 weeks where he said, I'm going to go home early. I'm going to get my rest. I'm going to go to bed. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to hang out with the fellas. I'm not doing anything. And he was awful. And he said, excuse my language, fuck this. I can't take this no more, Stephen A. I can't take this shit no more. And went out to Fridays on City Avenue in Philly at the time and was out till like 3 a.m. Showed up late to practice, was sleepy or whatever, and went out there and dropped 58. Yeah. And I looked at Larry Brown and I said, you just got to leave him alone. You just got to leave him alone.
I don't know. Like, LT would do some horn and some coke and go out and have 3 sacks.
Well, LT would send the porn stars or the prostitutes to the rooms of the competition. That's what he would do. He would send it to their room the night before games. That's what LT said he would do.
I should tell LT I'm thinking about playing. Send a whore over. Stephen A. Smith, the book is Straight Shooter. It is available as you hear this, and you can shoot him a tweet at Stephen A. Smith as well. Stephen, always great to talk to you. The time flies by. We'll do it again whenever your schedule permits.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right.
Very interesting guy. And that's it for the show. West Palm Beach, Florida, Improv, February 16th. You just go and then off to Magoobies in Baltimore, and that'll be 17th to 18th. Just go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows everywhere. And until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Eleanor Kerrigan and Stephen A. Smith and Max Bada saying mahalo.